History is full of royal secrets, dark bloodlines, and some truly shocking family trees. Today, we're diving into one of the strangest and creepiest topics from the past: inbreeding. When people marry their own cousins, siblings, and sometimes even uncles or nieces, all in the name of power, money, or tradition. It wasn't just kings and queens either. Some of the most inbred people in history came from ordinary families. In this video, we'll count down the 10 most inbred people ever recorded, and you won't believe who takes the #1 spot. 10. Isabella II of Spain. Isabella II was born into the heart of Spanish royalty, the daughter of King Ferdinand VII. Her birth was seen as a political victory, giving the king a much-needed heir to help hold the country together. But here's the twist. Isabella's mother was also her cousin, the king's own niece. This kind of close marriage was common in royal houses trying to protect their bloodlines. Oddly, Isabella seemed mostly healthy, apart from struggling with weight. But historians have debated whether she was truly her father's daughter, or possibly the result of a different, secret relationship. Even royal bloodlines had their mysteries. 9. The Fugates of Kentucky. Let's travel to 1800s Kentucky, where a family named the Fugates lived, tucked away in the Appalachian Hills. Martin and Elizabeth Fugate both carried a rare gene that caused a condition called methemoglobinemia, a disorder that turns skin a striking blue color due to lack of oxygen in the blood. 4 of their 7 children had bright blue skin, and in a time where anything unusual sparked fear, this made life hard. The family faced isolation, rejection, and discrimination. Unable to mix easily with outsiders, they began marrying within their own community, even within their own family, creating generations of inbreeding that kept the condition alive for decades. Science has since explained it, but for the Fugates, it was a real-life blue blood legacy. 8. Elizabeth Bathory. Elizabeth Bathory, also known as the Blood Countess, has a terrifying reputation. She's believed to have tortured and killed hundreds of young girls in the 1500s. Some stories even claim she bathed in their blood. But why? Some historians suggest she suffered from epilepsy, and back then, drinking blood was thought to be a treatment. It didn't help that her parents were cousins, and she came from generations of aristocratic inbreeding. The result? A noble woman born into privilege, but plagued by illness, violence, and paranoia. Whether the blood was medicine or madness, it's clear her twisted family tree played a role. 7. Louis, the Grand Dauphin of France. Louis, the son of the Sun King Louis XIV, was born into glory, but his family history wasn't as golden. His parents were double first cousins, meaning they shared all 4 grandparents. Instead of the usual 8 great-grandparents, Louis had just 4. That's a major red flag for genetics. Though he lived a relatively normal life, this high level of inbreeding left him at serious risk of inherited diseases. His story reminds us that even the most powerful families couldn't escape the dangers of closed gene pools. 6. Don Carlos of Spain. Now things take a dark turn. Don Carlos was the only son of King Philip II of Spain, and like Louis, he had only 4 unique great-grandparents. But unlike Louis, Don Carlos didn't get lucky. He suffered from severe mental illness, violent mood swings, and cruel behavior. At one point, he chased female servants and possibly assaulted them, only to fall down the stairs and suffer a traumatic brain injury. After that, things worsened. He stopped eating, spoke nonsense, and eventually starved himself to death in his early 20s. His father, afraid to leave the kingdom to him, sought another heir. Don Carlos is one of the most tragic examples of how inbreeding can destroy both mind and body. 5. Charles II of Spain. Meet the man who defined royal inbreeding, Charles II, the last of the Spanish Habsburgs. His family had married cousins for centuries, and Charles paid the price. He couldn't speak until age 4, couldn't walk until age 8, and had a tongue so large he could barely eat. He was infertile, constantly ill, and often confused. Doctors said he had the body of a 90-year-old man at age 35. When he died, they discovered his skull was full of fluid and his brain hadn't fully developed. Charles's death marked the end of Spain's Habsburg dynasty. He wasn't just the result of royal pride, he was a symbol of its downfall. 4. Margarita Teresa of Spain. Charles II's sister Margarita Teresa had the exact same genetic background, and yet she turned out surprisingly different. While she inherited the famous Habsburg jaw and a large nose, she was healthy, intelligent, and capable of bearing children. She married her maternal uncle, another case of royal inbreeding, but she managed to give birth 6 times before dying of bronchitis at just 21. Her story shows how inbreeding can sometimes skip major symptoms, but still leads to strange family ties and early death. 3. Tutankhamun. You've heard of King Tut, the boy king of ancient Egypt who ruled at around age 9. But what you might not know is that his parents were full siblings. Egyptian royalty believed the gods blessed their bloodlines, so they married brothers to sisters again and again. Tutankhamun's bones were weak, his spine was curved, and he likely walked with a cane. CT scans of his mummy showed he suffered from multiple disorders and probably died young from infection after a leg injury. One of his ancestors even married his own grandmother, producing a child who was both a daughter and an aunt. For the pharaohs, family ties were sacred, even when they got disturbing. 2. Maria Antonia of Austria. Maria Antonia was the most inbred Habsburg ever. Her parents were uncle and niece, and her grandparents were too. That's several layers of family overlap. And yet, she grew up relatively healthy and more attractive than her mother. She even married someone outside the Habsburg bloodline, breaking the dangerous cycle. Sadly, she died in childbirth at just 23. But here's the creepiest part. She was once proposed to marry her own uncle, Charles II, the same man who was so deformed he couldn't chew food. That match didn't happen, thank goodness, but it shows how desperate royal families were to keep it in the blood. 1. Cleopatra. Yes, the most inbred person in history may have been Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, and that surprises a lot of people because she was brilliant, strategic, and wildly charismatic. By the time she was 18, Cleopatra could speak over 12 languages, ruled a complex empire, and charmed both Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But her family, not so impressive. Her father married his own sister, a common practice among the Ptolemies, who ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great. The family had inbred for generations, marrying siblings, cousins, nieces, and uncles to keep their Greek bloodline pure. Some experts think Cleopatra may have been spared the worst effects because her mother may have been a concubine, not her father's sister. That could explain why she showed no signs of deformity despite being more inbred than even Charles II. But her true parentage remains a mystery, and so does her identity. So, what have we learned? Whether it's in castles, pyramids, or remote mountains, inbreeding has left a deep and often tragic mark on history. From blue skin to madness, from infertile kings to brilliant queens, these stories show how dangerous it can be when family ties become too close.